the shadows on my wall. All night, hearing voices telling me that I should get some sleep, because tomorrow might be good for something. Hold on, feeling like I'm headed for a breakdown, and I don't know why, but I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell, but stay a while and maybe then you'll see a different side of me. I'm not crazy, I'm just a little impaired. I know right now you don't care, but soon enough you're gonna think of me and how I used to be me, and talking to myself in public and dodging glances on the train. And I know they've all been talking about me. I can hear them whisper, and it makes me think there must be something wrong with me. Out of all the hours thinking, somehow I've lost my mind. But I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell, but stay a while and maybe then you'll see a different side of me. I'm not crazy, I'm just a little impaired. I know right now you don't care, but soon enough you're gonna think of me and how I used to be. I've been talking in my sleep, praying soon they'll come to get me. Yeah, they're taking me I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell, but stay a while and maybe then you'll see a different side of me. I'm not crazy, I'm just a little impaired. I know right now you don't care, but soon enough you're gonna think of me and how I used to be. Yeah, how I used to be. How I used to be. Well, I'm just a little how I used to be. find the lovers, so the bar is where I go. Me and my friends sat at the table doing shots, tripping fast, and then we talk slow. And you come over and start up a conversation with just me, and trust me, I'll give it a chance. Now take my hand, stop it, and the man on the jukebox, and then we start to dance. And now I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. And last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. When we came, we let the story begin. We're going out on our first date. You and me are thrifty, so go all you can eat. Fill up your bag and I fill up the plate. We talk for hours and hours about the sweet and the sour, and how your family's doing okay. And leaving, getting a taxi, kissing the backseat, tell the driver make the radio play. And I'm singing like, girl, you know I want your love. Your love was handmade for somebody like me. Come on now, follow my lead. I may be crazy, don't mind me. Say, boy, let's not talk too much. Grab on my waist and put that body on me. Come on now, follow my lead. Come on now, follow my lead. I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too. I'm in love with your body. Last night you were in my room, and now my bedsheets smell like you. Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with your body. 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 Every day discovering something brand new. I'm in love with the shape of you. Come on, be my baby, come on. 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 I'm in love with the shape of you. We push and pull like a magnet do. Although my heart is falling too.
And showing. Just want to always caveat that science is a process, and there are always limitations to all of these studies. But this is better than just like going off, as the youth would call it, vibes. So there we know of the various ecological and environmental impacts. They alter ecosystems, they become scavengers, they displace the wildlife that's already there. They have high nitrogen concentration in their urine that causes a lot of vegetation degradation, and we can see this based on any kind of like mail post or a lamp post that receives a lot of dog poop. It creates like this area where the vegetation dies off. There's fecal contamination. One of the studies says estimated there's 127.23 grams per hectare of dog feces left unpicked in city parks, right? And so those parks generally have leash ordinances, and so that's even still a lot. And yeah, bacterial, fungal, parasitic pathogens, stormwater runoff introduces this into the adjacent aquatic ecosystems. Importantly, I just want to caveat that there are benefits. It's not just like, it's there are places where a well-managed and conserved like dog park or dog area, off-leash dog area is beneficial, mostly for the dog owners, the literature has found, and not always to dogs. So one of the things that the study finds is that dog cortisol levels in off-leash parks tend to increase compared to in leashed areas. If you didn't know, cortisol is like the stress marker in biological animals, including us. But for the most part, having off-leash dog parks tends to invite or create better community cohesion in the sense that people interact with each other more and you interact with your neighbors. That's a little bit more mixed. I think importantly, the interventions are what we probably are thinking about. So as many of us have talked about, waste disposal at entrances is really important. Studies find that the initial quarter mile of like a trailhead is where most dogs defecate. So if hopefully, we already have dog poop bags, and so maybe just better education will help address some of that. Strict on-leash buffer zones, maybe that means better markers at Wagon Hill if we choose to decide to keep the off-leash dog hours. Would be helpful. Public education campaigns, as Wendy has pointed out as well. And then, one of the things that they did recommend is like maybe establishing some empirical thresholds to determine like when we need to change our management of like an area. So that might mean water quality or erosion. So yeah, just if we have ways to monitor what that looks like, I think Carolyn in the past has brought this up as well. Just like being able to monitor and then decide based off that whether or not we need to adjust our conservation management decisions. So yeah, that's kind of like just the basic gist of what I've found. And I will be sharing the PDF of like the full scope with all the references. So in case people are like want to read that by themselves. But yeah, it's about 17 references.
Wow.
All mostly in the past 10 years. Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Elliot, as part of your work, a lot of this seems waste focused. Did you stumble across any things that had looked at, and I know one of the problems we have at Wagon Hill is the shoreline. I hesitate to call it erosion, but destruction.
Degradation.
Degradation and things like that. Was you able to find anything but done elsewhere on that?
I'm sure there are out there. Since like that was in the focus, like one of the things they did find is that whenever you establish, and in the Conservation Commission, like buffer zones, right, away from some of those more sensitive habitats, that tends to help like restore some of that degradation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Great. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question, and this is maybe more for Rich, just based on looking at this research. Can you remind me where the trash cans are in Wagon Hill? Because if the study shows that that dog poop happens like within that first quarter mile, my question is like, is there a trash can located a quarter
is. At that
mile
quarter
in?
mile?
There
Right?
is.
Isn't there
There's
one?
several.
Isn't there one by the cemetery? So you would.
There's one by the
right?
cemetery, there's one right by the orchard, there's one over by like the porta potty area, the parking area, so there's adequate, and they're used
There's
also.
adequate trash cans, so
Yeah.
people should be able to like not have to carry their dog poop bag around or walk back to a trash can. Like there's adequate.
I'll tell you, my experience,
yeah.
I have a dog and I go to dog parks on occasion, but my experience is it doesn't really, you don't have to be near. I think the first thing you do when you go out for your dog walk is grab a bag, because you don't know if it's going to be within a quarter mile, half mile, or 3 miles.
Right.
So you grab a bag just to be sure that you have one, and usually I grab 2.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it's, I think that's great information because I think you're 100% right. 9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
it's immediate. but there's many times that they'll go twice, or they won't go right away. So you just grab a bag or two while you're on your walk, and if you don't use it, it's real easy to stuff it right back in the dispenser.
Right, and there's one there at Wagon Hill, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And there, can you remind me I know there's one at Woodridge Park
Yes.
as well. I'm just curious, what other, is there one at Jackson Landing too?
I don't
Does
recall all the
Rachel know that?
locations.
No, there's not one there.
I'm just curious to know like where we have them around town and not that, just thinking kind of more globally about getting people in the habit of making sure they have a dog
We
food
definitely put
bag.
them where we see the most, concentration of dogs, and those are the locations.
Yeah, I know, I think dogs are supposed to be on leash anyway, or not even at the park at Wagon, I mean at Jackson's Landing,
On leash.
Yeah.
on leash.
One of the things that the literature definitely says, and confirming a lot of what our assumptions were, is that owners tend to not notice where their dogs poop when they're off leash way more often compared to when they're on leash. That's definitely pretty conclusive, I would say.
Okay.
Excuse me, Neil.
Yes.
Ann Welsh has joined the meeting.
Oh, okay. Hi, Ann. Welcome. Hi. Okay, so I want to ask, I want to bring Wendy into this too, because in your exploration of Wagon Hill Farm, do you find that to be true, that most of the waste is within a quarter mile or so of the parking lot?
I will say that is true, yes. And the waste barrels were just placed early this week at the orchard and down towards the water. And I do believe that that might be part of the challenge that we have during the winter months, is that the waste barrels are up by the cars. And I'm not saying it's an excuse by any means, everybody should still be responsible, but I do feel there's a number of people who are like, well, I'm not gonna carry it the whole way because there's not a convenient
Yeah, sure.
trash receptacle, which is not acceptable. But
Okay.
yeah, I would say,
Okay, so the hope is that the situation will improve now that the barrels
I feel
are
like
more
it usually
conveniently
does.
located. Okay, good. So, I mean, my conclusion of this obviously is kind of what we would know anecdotally, is that off-leash is bad for the environment, but good for the people and the dogs. So it's kind of a balance as to, what do we value more? And the best case scenario, in my opinion, is to allow both if people are responsible enough to clean up after their dogs and have less impact on the environment. Yes, Carolyn?
So can I make a suggestion that we develop a plan? Sorry, I would like to see all the problems identified, all the solutions provided, and then benchmarks or outcomes as to how we're, quote, going to measure success. Because I'll tell you, in the last week, I was at Wagon Hill Farm just for a few minutes. And, I'm there for just a few minutes. Two people had dogs off leash at 12 o'clock or later. They know they're not supposed to do it, because when I stopped my car to suggest that maybe they put their dogs on the leash, they did it immediately. And, this has been going on for a long time, and let's just start measuring stuff.
Okay, I want to ask Todd a question now, because you had mentioned, and we have seen, that there's more of a police presence up there at around 10 o'clock or so to gently remind people that their dogs are supposed to be on leash. Is that still going on, as far as you know?
It is still going on, but it's as available. We've had about 100 visits from our police officers or parking enforcement people up there. But again, it's as time allows. And so my guess is we probably will not ever have 100% compliance, but our hope is with more presence, we'll have better compliance at the property.
I'm just going to say this outright, that the educational purposes of that site should, to me, override anything, children's programming, adults programming. And there's quite a large number of visitors on that site. And, stepping in dog feces is not fun. And, again, this has been going on for a long time. And I just think we should start figuring out next steps if people aren't going to cooperate.
Yeah, what we had decided that we were going to do, because after discussing it in previous meetings, at our last meeting or the meeting before, I think it was at our last meeting, the conclusion was that we would give it 3 months and see if the situation improved. But there was no talk of any specific measurement to know how it improved. And, I don't know how you would do that, count the number of piles, but it was more going to be kind of a visual to determine whether it improved, and also with the efforts of Wendy and her crew. Veronique, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to kind of reframe this, that I think there's 2 issues. There's the dog waste and there's the dogs off leash. I can tell you, since I came back last Monday, I spent 2 days. I went to my 2 first day. I went to every conservation property we have and picked up a lot of dog poo. It was all like Elliot said, about 300 yards from the entrance, all concentrated. A lot of people fling their dog bags, their full dog poo bags in the weeds or, in the brambles on the side of the trail. And the dogs off leash, they're everywhere. People have dogs off leash at Long Marsh, people have dogs off leash at Oyster River Forest. I almost got snipped at by a dog at Oyster River Forest the day before my trip. I kindly reminded the person, it's an on leash, and he just basically pretended he didn't hear me and continued on and told me his dog was friendly, which, sorry to say, he did not appear friendly. So I think that's an ongoing issue that's not just at Wagon Hill, and that's, I know we're dealing with something else at Wagon Hill because we have the official off leash, but official or not official, people have their dogs off leash on our conservation properties and around, other towns too. So,
thank you, Ted.
I think we've hit a couple of things here. Dog waste isn't the only problem. Some of our canine friends aren't well behaved and then interact with people off leash, and some folks aren't necessarily happy about having somebody else's dog jump all over them. So there's a combination of human behavior and dog behavior that is not, on the leash would help. But so it seems like there's a couple of things to think about.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I'll do some
Yes.
research actually to see, and I don't know if you want to as well, as to how other towns have dealt with this, because I'm sure, again, it's not a problem unique to Durham.
Yeah, and if you want to meet, kind of offline to, discuss your ideas as to how measurements might be made, I'd certainly be willing to do that. You, Veronique, and I could meet separately.
I know
Yeah.
Veronique did some looking into that. And
yeah,
talking to
Sales
other
Hickey
towns,
from
'cause
Stratham Parks and
Stratham
Rec
Park.
has done a lot of research on that, and he's actually trying to consider, really restrictive measures at Stratham Hill Park because of all the issues we have. So we're not unique, but maybe we could have a conversation with him. He was very open to share, some of his research and, yeah.
Okay, and one more comment. Wendy, you wanted to...
I'm a Dover resident, and we just got our notifications for registering our dogs, and with our notifications, I should have brought it. It was a great little flyer. It gave all the listings that was mentioned of what happens with dog waste and the contamination problems, but it also gave a map, and it gave a location of where all the dog waste stations were in town. It was a very informative pamphlet. I'd be happy to get it to share with you folks. I don't know if that will help much, but I took the time to read it, and I think the residents will take the time to read it as well.
Yeah, that could be very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think,
Okay.
and I don't know if this has been discussed before, but so I have a friend who loves to bring her dog up during off-leash hours to Wagon Hill, and she's been doing it for a long time. And her impression, which there is no science behind it, even though she's a scientist, is that there's a rotation of dog owners that come in. And so a lot of the times when we've done these pushes for education that happened 3 years ago, well, there's a whole new set of folks. Like there might be some of the same people who are still coming, but without that consistent annual or biannual reaching out to all of these individuals, you're losing that education piece when
That makes
dog,
sense.
and again, her impression is it's a lot of people with younger dogs who might have newer dogs, and they have a lot of energy, and they're trying to socialize their dogs and get them out and running around. Whereas dogs, when they get older, they don't need as much exercise, they don't like to socialize as much, and so you see these owners kind of taper off and kind of come in, new owners come in waves. And so I'm not saying that there's any science behind that, but I think her impression is that without really having pushing education on a consistently, you are going to miss people, and then as that accumulates over time, you get a whole new slew of dog owners who just are not aware or see other people's behaviors and base their behavior on other people's behaviors rather than what the signs say.
So an ongoing
It's got to
process
be on.
has to be.
That that really is what has to happen. It's not like, and so your efforts is
You're
fantastic,
absolutely correct.
but it can't just happen once. It has to happen multiple times throughout the year.
Okay. Okay, one more comment, then we're going to move on to our next
and
item.
I'll stop.
Yeah.
I've been going for, like I said, 20 years.
Could you step up to the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I have been attending Wagon Hill for about 20 years. Like I said, I grew up on Dover Point, and I do see exactly what you're saying. I am there 6 or 7 days a week, and I'm there at all times of off-leash hours. And there is a new group of individuals who are coming, younger individuals who's got first-time dogs, and they don't understand the conservation part of it, and they don't understand the problems that dog waste and dogs are creating. So if we could educate, I think that would be a big help. I think they want to help. I think they want to be good stewards of the property. They just don't understand what that entails and that it is a conservation land. Yeah.
Okay. So an ongoing education effort needs to be put into place.
And there's a group of us who are happy to educate. The
Okay.
people of my age and generation have been going a long time, and they are following the rules and they see what's happening, but I don't think they know how to educate the younger people who are coming and visiting the land.
Okay, thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to move on.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, before you move on, I came here to hear several of the presentations, but to speak at the public comments. Is there a policy that requires people to get on the agenda for public comments?
No,
Yeah.
but we've actually gone past the public comments. Do you have something you can say very concisely?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. I'm Julian Smith. I live at 3 Chesley Drive, and for nearly 20 years I've been developing wetlands and marshes at the neighborhood park I own on Woodridge Road. And my vernal pools are full right now, and I thought I would invite members of the Land Stewardship Commission, subcommittee rather, to visit to see these vernal pools, and I'm expanding some of them to make them vernal well into the summer. If you get on to, if you go along Mill Road, north from the center of town, turn left on to Woodridge Road, and there's a big open area with ponds. I'm there most days playing in what I call Bayou, New Hampshire. I'm
Okay.
from Louisiana, and I've been creating bayous for nearly 60 years, as Veronique knows, having seen some of my former beaver ponds. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. That's a nice invitation, and I know exactly what you're talking about. So
Thank you.
I will certainly go check it out. Okay, I'd like to move on now to examining shifting vernal windows at Spruce Hole Bog with a group of UNH capstone students. And I may mispronounce some names, so forgive me. Chelsea Otai, Serafina Rivera, Nora Freed, Claudia Guillo Wallace. Okay, all right. Now we have a request for the whoever's presenting to sit down, like 2 sitting down or maybe 3 at the table, speaking into the microphone, and then 1 more person up at the podium, so everybody has access to the microphone. And I want to thank you for being here, number one, and for and for showing us the work that you've done at Spruce Hole Bog.
Thank you for having us.
Are you plugging in?
I am.
Okay, great. Yeah, please speak into the microphone.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Okay. Is it visible?
Not yet.
No, it looks just like Ann Welsh for some reason. Hi, Ann. There we go.
That's good.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So, like you said, I'm Serafina. This is Chelsea, Nora, and Claudia, and we are part of Liz Burkowski's class from UNH titled Arctic Challenges. But really, this program is in association with CARPE, which is Convergent Arctic Research Perspectives and Education. Yeah, long name. But so we're a CARPE course, and we will be presenting on examining the shifting seasonality at Spruce Hole Bog. And this is under an NSF-funded program. So just to start out with some of the definitions of vernal window, it's the shoulder season between snowmelt and leaf out when water, nutrients, and carbon move rapidly through the ecosystem. So specifically, we'll be looking at this with Spruce Hole Bog. And here we have a photo from the starting winter season in January on the left and the ending winter season in December 31st. And this is from a notable study from Norway. So you can see the kind of changes in, color, environment, and, moisture around the area where we can look specifically at the vernal window. Just to hone in on a different specific area. So the vernal window opens with the snowmelt and closes when the forest canopy fully leaps out. So you can think of it as our typical New Hampshire spring mud season. And during the vernal window, the snow melts and exposes soil to sunlight. The soil warms up and a series of ecosystem processes begin to unfold, rapidly moving different types of nutrients, energy, and water through the system. So now moving back to kind of the vernal window and where we're looking at. So the shifting vernal window creates phenological mismatch between organisms whose life cycle is dictated by the photoperiod cues. So here we have a great figure showing kind of the synchrony between plant spring, growth peak, and consumer pollinator arrival or breeding. And in a historical climate, we've seen kind of this association or what we would call synchrony between them. But with a warming climate and changes in environmental factors, we're starting to see a mismatch or asynchrony where we're having warmer temperatures early and or later. And so this is what we're examining in our current day at Spruce Hole Bog. So,
so here's a map of our sites at Spruce Hole Bog. So the sampling sites, sensors were put in in 2022, and I'll show you what all those sensors look like. But just to orient everyone, so you can see the parking area dictated with that big P on Packers Fall Road, and then the bog kind of in the center, and then all of our sampling sites. So we have 2 sites on the south that are south-facing, 2 sites that are north-facing, and 2 sites that are actually in the bog, and they all have a suite of sensors. And this was set up as a relative transect across the bog, so we could capture the whole range of geotopography that's represented in the region. So just a little bit of information about each of the sensors that we have collecting data. So the first are cameras, and they collect data every 30 minutes. So they just like take a wide angle photo like the one that's shown here as an example. And we're going to use that, or we have been using that to track plant phenology. So that's sort of the seasonal timing of plant growth, as well as snow presence and absence. We also have soil probes that are taking measurements every 15 minutes, and they take like topsoil just above the soil and just below ground measurements. So at 15 centimeters above ground, 2 centimeters above ground, and 6 centimeters below ground. And those are like annually taking measurements, so we can track seasonal changes in topsoil temperature. We also have some air temperature and relative humidity sensors that are set up, and they take measurements every 15 minutes. So that's sort of like you would get on your weather app, just like what is happening right now in terms of air temperature and humidity, and those take measurements, again, all year long. And then we've got microphones, and they capture auditory data, so we're using that to understand bird and frog migrations as they move through the bog, and they have a range up to 100 meters, so they can capture a relatively wide area of auditory data. We've got just a little bit of drone imagery that was taken by our classmate who's not here, Darlene Chavez of the bog. This was taken on November 9th, so just a few months ago. It's kind of cool to see what it looks like from above.
So cool.
Yeah. And then we've also got some drone imagery just from a few weeks ago that she took on March 18th. So this is obviously the winter season. Just as the snow was beginning to melt.
So as mentioned before, we have game cams or phenocam cams that allow us to understand how snow is disappearing at the site. So snow disappearance is when less than 0.1 millimeter of the snow water equivalent remains and no additional snow accumulates until the next winter. Measuring snow disappearance at Spruce Hole Bog allows us to see when, like, the opening of the vernal window. As you can see from the video, in 2024 there was uniform snow melt, which is not the case. Like, the snow disappears at different rates throughout the bog. The bog in particular, sites around the bog experience snow melt first, then followed by our south-facing sites, then north-facing sites. And so these cam data will allow us to see how snow melt varies across the years.
Okay, so what we're looking at here is data from Bog 2, taken from actually within the bog. There's a map on the right, just to reorient all of you. And this is taken from, again, the iButton sensors that are taking air measurements. So this is air temperature and relative humidity. And what we're seeing with air temperature on the top is that it's pretty much just representative of a seasonal cycle. We're seeing annual variation in that change of temperature. But for relative humidity, we're seeing a range of around 40 to 60% with no really obvious trends. Usually bogs in North America have a relative humidity that's moister, closer to 60 and 80%. And we think that the position of the bog as a kettle hole bog makes it more susceptible to dryness because it is a more sensitive system than a regular bog would be. And also just the position of the bog is below like most of the vegetation and the tree cover. And then from these sensors, from the iButton sensors, we also have volumetric water content and soil temperature. Like Nora mentioned, we have probes that measure 15 centimeters above the ground, 2 centimeters above the ground, and 6 centimeters below the ground. Again, this was taken at Bog 2, which is actually within the bog. The first graph on top is showing volumetric water content, and really what you're seeing is not a lot of
not a huge trend. We're seeing large values in the volumetric water content that could be periods of dryness. But then when you compare it to the soil temperature plot, we're seeing that temperatures show again more of a pattern in seasonal variation.
Okay, so now transitioning to spring green up. Here's just a video from 2024, the green up. The window is the same for this year. So from May 1st to May 15th, we can really see that transition from like a brown forest to a green forest. This is like the critical period for all of the insects and birds that are going to use Spruce Hole Bog as a migratory site. So tracking this green up window is really important to understand that seasonal timing piece that we were talking a little bit about earlier. So here's this same data just shown in a figure. So this is bog 2, the same bog that Claudia was just talking about, or the same site that Claudia was just showing the volumetric water and temperature graphs from. But this is just our annual GCC measurements. So this is essentially like spectral data from those images that we're taking on the phenocams, analyzed, showing that May 15th was that peak optimal green up. So you know, you can see from December until May 15th, you're getting like a slow ramp of green up, and then you have your summer greenness until it drops off again in the fall. And then obviously we have this data for every camera at every site. And so this is just comparing some 2023 and 2025 data showing like a relative consistency in that green up data across the years. So on May 13th in 2023, we saw that green up, May 14th in 2025. And it was May 15th in 2024. So just a relative consistency across all the years at all of our sites. And just one other thing that we're doing at the bog this year to highlight measuring green up, we are taking globe measurements. I don't know if anyone has heard of globe, but it's like an NSF and NASA project that is actually based on education for school kids, like getting school kids to be able to do hands-on science measurements. Global learning and observation to benefit the environment is what GLOBE stands for. But basically we're using this protocol that has been used in schools across the country to try to track green up so that we can match that up against our phenology data from the CAMs.
Okay, now moving on to the birds, the fun stuff. So one of the sensors that we had collects audio data, and these are some of the more common birds that I've seen and that Claudia and I have seen across the past couple of years. So it's 2022 through 2024. And just some of the more common species: American goldfinch, eastern wood pewee, hermit thrush, white-breasted nuthatch, barred owl, red-eyed vireo, ovenbird, scarlet tanager, hairy woodpecker, tufted titmouse, and the pine warbler. And so bird activity begins increasing shortly after the vernal window opens and peaks during some of the summer months. And so this is just an example graph that I have here after sorting through some of the data. So just as a initial methodology, we ran it through this model called BirdNet. And so it takes all of the files and sorts them based off of confidence of presence. And then the output is a ton of files. And so after putting it through that, it got probably between 100 and 120 different species. So these are some of the more common and notable species. And it's also just a great representation that Spruce Hole Bog is not just a migratory area. It's also a breeding habitat, which we can see through some of the later spring months and summer months. And so this is an example of some of the data that we've had from 2022 through 2024. And there's a consistency where we can see peaks in bird detections in some of the later summer and spring months, and then early into the fall as well.
Okay, so I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with something called eBird, but it's basically a platform, a website that birders use often to record their observations. You're able to upload pictures and audio and just general observations. So kind of like Nora was talking about using Globe to ground truth our green up measurements, we've been using eBird, which is citizen science, I should mention, to kind of ground truth what our audio recorders are seeing. And we saw that when we compared the species presence between Spruce Hole Bog and the greater Oyster River Forest, which is where the bog is located, there was an overlap of species of about 67.6%, almost 70%. But there were 9 species that were observed at Spruce Hole Bog and not observed within the Greater Oyster River Forest. Those were the American bittern, sora, common redpoll, greater yellowlegs, gadwall, herring gull, purple martin, northern rough-winged swallow, and the house wren. Most of these are wetland or marsh birds, so it makes sense that they're being observed within the bog at a wetland environment and maybe not in the rest of the Greater Oyster River Forest. 2 of these birds, the herring gull and the house wren, are really relatively common birds, so it is odd that they weren't observed in the forest. We think that it might just be selection bias because usually citizen scientists aren't recording birds that they see all the time. They're recording birds that are fun or interesting or rare. So that would be an explanation for that. But we wanted to highlight 3 unique birds that we did see at the bog. The American bittern and the sora, like I mentioned, are 2 of those wetland or marsh birds. But what's interesting about them is that they're considered elusive and secretive. They're really good at navigating dense marsh wetland environments, and they kind of prefer to just not be interacted with, maybe not observed. And we think that they really highlight the value of using acoustic monitoring at the bog to determine species presence. And then the bird on the right there is a common redpoll, and we highlighted it because it's actually considered an Arctic bird, but sometimes it's spotted in Canada and the northeastern United States, like in New Hampshire. It's what's considered an eruptive species, meaning it can be completely absent one year and super abundant another year. They actually migrate south only during winters that are driven by food scarcity. So it's interesting that they've chosen to come to Spruce Hole Bog. So, like Fina mentioned, Spruce Hole Bog is used by early returning migrants, but it's also a great breeding habitat for these birds. We're seeing indicator species like Canada warblers, white-throated sparrows, and palm warblers. These birds are relatively common, but what they show is that Spruce Hole Bog is a suitable ground habitat and has plenty of seed and insect availability. These birds are also sensitive to changes in habitat, meaning that they are good indicators of a relatively healthy ecosystem. And then we've also observed protected species like the bald eagle.
Okay, so we've told you a little bit about all of the kinds of data that we have. So we have all of this green up data, we have all of this snow cover data, we have temperature, relative humidity in the soil and the air, and we have this auditory data. And we've been thinking about questions about the changing vernal window, so that changing seasonality between sort of the time of green up and the arrival of migratory birds, the time of green down and the departure of these species. But we're really curious if there's anything that you all might be interested in seeing done with this data. We have data from 2022 until now. It's continuing to be collected. So we're just curious if there's any interest from the town for use of these data products, or anything else, any other questions that you might have concerning Spruce Hole Bog.
Oh, are you open for questions now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, does anybody have any comments or questions before I start asking my questions?
That's a lot of work. You guys
Yes,
have been very
John.
busy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you considered any studies of insects in this that would suggest changes in seasonality, flying insects as well as others?
So probably the closest that we could realistically do just based off of the data we've collected is potentially the auditory data, like some insects, make noises that are detected. But we found that running it through BirdNet, that modeling processes, it's not as statistically accurate and it's harder to get these detections. I'm sure we could look into, maybe those kinds of frequencies and specifically honing in on insects, but we haven't found as much kind of statistical significance with that aspect. But that's definitely a key piece.
Yeah, we could probably use the acoustic data. I think we mentioned in the beginning, we also have frogs. So we could use the birds and the frogs as a proxy, sort of. But we should have mentioned that this project started way before we came as master students. So these sensors have been put in since 2022. So we didn't decide which sensors were put up or why they were put up. We're just using the data that's available to us. So, we could find a way to include insects, but it wasn't... it wasn't the easiest or more accurate use of the acoustic data.
Thank you.
Is this on the website somewhere?
No, it's not on the website yet. So this is just a project that we've been working on this semester. But yeah, we would love to provide data and or figures, anything that you would be interested in to have on the website.
Ted, you had a question or comment?
I'm still thinking. Go ahead.
Okay.
Is there any data on the water table and the height of the bog and whether there are concerns with drought, the lowering of that water level? And it also, so this bog overlays the town of Durham's drinking water supply, like this aquifer, and so it is also, the bog also kind of helps recharge that ground, provide that groundwater and help kind of slowly recharge that. So I'm wondering how, if you've looked at all at that, those changes, not just the biological, but kind of some of those water resources, has that been looked at?
Yeah, so the soil moisture probes are the closest thing that we have to understanding the water table. And so, I don't know if you can pull that back up, but basically, like, you can see that in dry years, the moisture in the soil, like we can track the relative moisture of just the upper portion of the soil, and how, so that's the volumetric water content. So you can see, like, obviously 2024 and 2025 are pretty different in terms of their summer moisture. So I guess that's the closest that we have to understanding, like, deep water availability. But I bet that there is some more data out there somewhere.
Yeah, the town of Durham definitely has wells that are looking at the aquifer under the bog because, you know, it is a source of drinking water. That could definitely be a next step for us because even if it's not public information, like, there are professors at UNH who work with the aquifer. I'm sure we could use that information to get more input.
Any other questions, Todd? Go ahead.
I had 4 questions. I'm going to ask them all, and then you can decide how to answer them. So the first is, could you maybe just comment on sort of what a kettle bog is, how it forms, why they're important, generally? The second is, you mentioned the synchrony and the mismatch, and I'm just wondering, to what extent are you seeing a mismatch happening here? And if a mismatch does occur, does nature somehow adapt to the mismatch and create a new synchrony? The third is, are you observing interesting mammals in this bog? And the fourth is, my Apple phone, I can track temperature in Durham, temperature in Denali, can I track temperature in Spruce Hole Bog just for fun?
Okay, I'll start with the Kettle Hole Bog. So I'm sure many of you guys know this is a post-glacial environment, and so when there was a giant ice sheet after the removal, you get this kind of depression where you once had the ice sheet, and so specifically with Spruce Hole Bog, because of the environment underneath, it formed kind of this lake kettle-ish area. And after the melting, all of the water and some of the plant and vegetation kind of compressed and forms this like mushy, kind of marshy area. And that's where we get an increase in depression because of all the decomposing vegetation that continues to grow upon itself. And that's why we get this kind of, if you've ever seen Spruce Hole Bog from either LiDAR or just on a map, you have this kind of area around it where there's a depression above, and then the bog itself at the bottom, where you've got the water and then the marsh and some of the vegetation around that. I hope that answered that. And then the second one was...
I think the synchrony and asynchrony.
Sure.
Yeah, so we have data from starting in 2022, so it's not a very long time series. So from like a scientifically, statistically significant kind of lens, we can't really tell yet if we're seeing any kind of asynchrony at the bog. But we are seeing asynchrony like across the state of New Hampshire from longer data series. And we know that the bog is a relatively sensitive habitat. And so we would expect that if we continue to take data there, we would see this asynchrony develop. In terms of that like asynchrony being refilled by other natural processes, this is sort of one of the challenges of climate change. We don't really know what is going to happen. And so you could imagine that if migratory birds are coming are arriving in Spruce Hole Bog after the natural timing of like insect hatch, that their food source is no longer aligned with their arrival time. And so we might see like a major decline in the success of migratory birds. We don't really know if that's happening at Spruce Hole Bog yet, but we would expect that it's starting to happen. And we don't really know what will happen after, yeah. So it's a good question. I don't have an answer for you. It's one, yeah.
Mammals? Any interesting mammals?
No mammals yet. We could probably use another form of like a citizen science app, because I'm sure people have seen animals at the bog, but we don't have data about the mammals yet.
We know that there are mammals captured in the phenocams. Like I was just scrolling through the data the other day and there was a fox that was captured on the cams, but we don't have any kind of programming that's like picking up those specific signals.
Temperature? Can we monitor the temperature somehow?
Some for the weather station.
I think if we got maybe the relative humidity or maybe the moisture like publicly available, that could be one way, but I think we would just have to insert maybe another sensor that would have temperature and figure out a way to make that, live and available, because, we want people to know a bit more about Spruce Hole Bog without, going directly into it. But yeah, but that's, I'm sure, a future plan.
I don't think if you like looked on your phone, it would show you a different temperature than the rest of Durham. I don't think it's like specific enough.
Yeah, the way that the sensors are currently set up, we have to go and collect the data from them. They're not like connected to the internet. They're not live streaming at all. But we do know some people at UNH who are in charge of the UNH weather station on top of Morse. So it's possible that we could get some sensors set up that would track the specific situation at Spruce Hole Bog.
So more seriously, like, is the temperature in the bog somehow different from the temperature in Durham generally?
I mean, the bog is a major depression, and so it holds on to cold air longer. So I would expect that, like, actually in the bottom of the bog, you're getting, both more moist and colder environments all year long. Also, the bog is full of sphagnum moss, which is a radiative cooling, which is a plant that, like, encourages radiative cooling. Essentially, it's like a high surface area plant. It's super dense, and so like it absorbs a lot of warm air. So I would expect, like, because of that, you also would get cooler temperatures at the bottom of the bog. So I think that there would be a temperature difference. Yeah.
Yes.
Are there plans, and maybe you said this, are there plans to continue this research going forward?
Yeah, so the sensors are still at the bog. They're going to continue to collect data. The university still has funding to continue to pay someone to pick up that data essentially from all of our monitors. I think that, there's a number of professors at UNH, specifically Alex Contasta, who I think has come and visited the Land Stewardship Committee before, and she's sort of the main PI on this project, so I think at some point she will turn it into some kind of publication. So yes, there are plans to continue collecting this data.
Okay. It would be nice if it went out years. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Is there data of the quantity of types of birds? Like, could you tell, we got one hit, or we detected this bird one time, and these other birds 100 times?
Right. So the data is just a compilation of all the detections. And so that's the hard part about audio data. Putting it through a model is it has to go through like a percentage of statistical significance or correctness of it. So we can get presence counted from each time it's collected, but sometimes there's uncertainty if the bird sound is the same as another bird sound, or if it's, it got background noise from a car or from a machine in the background, and so that can sometimes affect it. But yeah, it counts presence based off of like a 75% confidence interval, and there we would count that as one detection and compile that over, a year span and try to compare those.
I wonder if we had like some of our avid birders in town go out and kind of confirm some of those. And because I mean, just from my own experience using like Merlin and eBird, it also doesn't pick up a lot of those really high-pitched, soft bird calls, and so you're probably missing birds. And then, every once in a while you get like that random bird that might come out there, and maybe you hit it, as Marty was pointing out, you might hit it once in that 3-year period in one day, and it maybe is statistically really not significant. And so that bird data can really be, when you're basing it off of that audio, can be less accurate tool, and so it might be helpful to get some confirmation. But we've got some really great birders in town, including my neighbor. So, and who loves to go birding everywhere. So it'd be kind of fun to see if there might be the possibility of just getting some folks out there and really trying to confirm things. But
Good.
Yeah, we aren't birders, so
Yeah.
we were a little bit unfamiliar with a lot of the species and a lot of their calls in the beginning. We did try to confirm a lot of bird calls with Sam Bratzman, who is a PhD student at UNH, who is also an avid birder in Durham. But yeah, we haven't tried to actually send a group of people there and be like, tell us what you're hearing. Yeah, but that'd be interesting. I'm sure they'd be interested, because apparently people really love to bird at Spruce Hole Bog.
yeah.
Okay, I'd like to ask 2 questions. Number one is, from a land stewardship point of view, how do you think we could use this data to help us do a better job in the future of stewarding this property? Is there any, if you don't have an answer off the top of your head, that's just a question I'd like to put out there. Or do you have an answer off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that's what all of this is about. And I would say we're heading in the right direction already with thinking of creating the viewing platform, creating signs, trying to encourage people to learn more about the bog and to understand why it's so special and so environmentally sensitive, and giving people the opportunity to learn about it without actually going down into the bog. Because that's the most important piece about this. We want people to be interested, and we want to encourage people to go outside and use public lands in Durham, but we don't want them to be messing with an environment that is so sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so actually you just made a good segue into my second question, which is that we are planning to create a viewing platform that will keep people out of the bog, but will allow them to see into it. And so the question is, how can we work together to create panels that, use your data, use your information, even, not just the statistical data and the graphs, but also pictures of the birds and, things that will really draw people's interest and help them to understand what a marvelous, treasure this is for the town.
Yeah, I feel like we talked a lot about this during the beginning stages of the project, because we wanted to highlight why the bog is important. Really, it could be a variety of things. It could be explaining the geology and, introducing a kettle hole bog, what it is and why it's important. I'm pretty sure Spruce Hole Bog is the only kettle hole bog left in New Hampshire, which is why it's important. It could be showing the type of plants that we have down there, highlighting, we have some carnivorous plants, like pitcher plants, if you're familiar with those. It could be highlighting the birds, the migration that's happening. It really could be a combination of things related to the data or just related to the history of the bog in general.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. So I guess from a practical point of view moving forward, how do we partner with you to kind of put that all together? Because, we have to kind of create, brainstorm or create an outline, figure that all out. Are you guys going to be around for a while, or?
They hope
No, I don't think so.
They're not like me.
Many of us are graduating in May, September-ish.
What's that?
Many of us are graduating
Yeah,
this
yeah.
semester.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm the only one who will be around
Yes.
for a while. I just started a PhD program, so I'll be here for another 4 years.
okay, good. So anyway, we'd like to work with you on that.
Yeah, so
Nora.
I'm Nora one more time. And I would love to partner on creating a sign. I think that we have some time the rest of the semester, and perhaps we could draft up a couple of possibilities for things that might be interesting to go on a sign and pass them your way.
That'd be great.
But yeah, going forward, I will be the main contact.
Okay, so Veronique should be your main contact.
Yeah, and I think Nora has volunteered to help with the bog walk at the BioBlitz. So, and we have a couple of very strong people on plants and geology. So, yeah. Before the group leaves, because I don't know when they want to leave, I want to thank Fina for helping us leading the group on at Long March on March 15 for one of our Discover Durham Day walks. We had a small group, but it was amazing. We learned a lot. We even learned that we're not looking at granite, but exceller diorite as a rock. But I just want to thank her for all the work she put into it, because that was really a great walk.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'd just like to add, it seems to me that any messaging to the public should make a very good, strong case as to why it's important for people not to be going down into the rock. Explaining what's there, but making it clearly important that you will damage it if you go down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons for the viewing platform also, is to keep them out of there. Okay, so we need to move on. Thank you very much. That was a marvelous presentation.
Nice job.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, next is the kiosk sign working group update. So we have several members of the kiosk sign working group here. We have Linda, Sarah, Elliot, and Veronique. So are you going to be the spokesperson, Veronique, or is someone else going to?
I think so.
Okay.
Gail
Gail is not here, obviously.
Gail is not here.
Gail is not here, so I guess I'm the spokesperson.
Okay.
So we met on Monday, and we feel at this point we're kind of at a standstill on getting our content together, and our icons and everything that we want to see on the first sign. And we feel we need to move to the next step. I hope I'm speaking for the group. So I met with a graphic designer, Brenda Rydell. She has a company, Graphic Details, out of Portsmouth. She has like 30 years of experience. She's right now working with the Conservation Commission in Rye to design their new kiosk trailhead signage. She's done a lot of signs for nature-based, like land trust and conservation commissions, and I felt she was a good match for what we're looking for. She was very responsive. She sent an estimate within like a couple days of meeting with her. So I feel at this point it would be great to be able to contract with her and start working on the project. The other people, I had reached out to somebody that was recommended in Maine, but she's a one-person operation and she doesn't have any capacity before next year. So Brenda has a team of 5 other people, and she was basically like, once you contract with me, we can start within like a couple weeks. So my recommendation would be that we sign a contract with her and start working on it so we make progress. Her plan is to design the sign with us. She would meet as many times as we need. She'll meet with the subgroup. She would come and present to the Land Stewardship Subcommittee so people can give their feedback. And once she has designed and we've approved the first sign, she works with Portsmouth Signs. She also can work with other companies to print the sign. And she would take care of all that part for us, like the communication, seeing the proofs, etc. We just have to pay the printer separately, obviously. And once she's designed the first sign, which is the one we're working on, the Doe Farm sign, then she would provide us with all the design files. So realistically, we could, and she's worked with other entities that have done it, we could use those design files to do all the other signs ourselves, because we have all the content. And so we would just need to get Adobe Illustrator, like the Creative Suite, which I've been talking to Luke already about, and which he thought we could acquire. The town already has one license. Karen is using it to do the town report, but he could get another license probably at the end of the year. So that kind of fits our timeline, and it's about $300 a year. So if the town can't get, we could get another one with our maybe supplies budget or something like that, and start working through it. Or we could hire Brenda for an extra fee to do each additional sign. So her contract cost for the one sign and giving us all the templates and all the icons that we would need to use, because obviously we want to use different icons on different signs. She would provide all that, and that's $5,800. And from a meeting I had with SRPC about the sign design part that they're working on for Wagon Hill Farm, it's pretty much in the the cost, what it costs right today to design a sign. And we could hire her to do the additional signs for $1,800 if we didn't feel we were capable of doing the further signs ourselves. I think we have a network of people. Elliot, I think we're very capable of doing that. So that's for the informational sign part. We also talked about the mapping side part, but because we had decided on Sarah's advice, and I think everybody had agreed months and months ago, that we would do the signs in two parts, which was the informational signs and the maps, so we could, if we need to update one, we don't have to redo the whole sign. And also it allows us flexibility on deciding, what we're going to do with the map. Still need to finish the field work for acquiring data for the maps. And I'm talking with SRPC on that at the end of this month, because they are proposing to go with the Venza maps for the new Wagon Hill sign that's just talking about the shoreline restoration, but there's also going to be a map there. So there's more discussions about that, so I leave that mapping part for later. And no matter what, we need to finish the groundwork, and then Steve needs to finish the product, and we can decide later. So I would like this group to move forward so that we can move forward with the project. And as Anne had said, I think last year, realistically, if realistically we can get the Doe Farm sign done this summer, then we can move for the other signs. That gives us time to maybe get other people involved to write the content for the other signs. But the markup that Elliot has right now is basically, what we'd like to see on the sign, and we need to move and work with the graphic designer who's going to tell us, what she thinks we should take out, what she thinks we should add, how many words, etc. So what I'm really suggesting is that we move to vote to accept the proposal from Brenda, so we can move further with this project.
And I just want to add that, so there is an art and a science to designing these kiosks. And I know that we've had some discussions in the past about this, but the amount of content, how you provide that, the order that you provide it in, and there's a lot of considerations as far as accessibility. So people with some sort of visual impairment or cognitive impairment, and being able to process the information, the important information, and get that information across to users. And there's been research and publications done that have really looked at the best way for people to absorb that information and gain that information before they go out on a property. And it is it's challenging to do design work. I have tried. If you are not in the habit of doing it on a regular basis, it is really time consuming. I like to compare it to me trying to do design work is like my husband trying to do a house project. Like if we hired somebody to do the carpentry work, it would take a week and it would be done rather than 2 years on the weekend, and 5 times as long, because he really doesn't know what he's doing. And I hope he doesn't hear this meeting, but the cost effectiveness of hiring somebody to do that is well beyond like what anybody here really at this meeting, unless we have a designer who's a volunteer within the town who wants to take it on. So I think it is money well spent, so that we are really doing our best to communicate to users of the trails and the properties on the information they need when they go out on the property and the information we want to communicate to them. So I'd like us to spend this money. I would recommend that we do.
Okay. Ann, do you have a comment?
I just have a question. You're turning the map around for Doe Farm, right?
That hasn't been decided yet.
It makes no sense
Yes.
to do that map if it doesn't get done from the point of view of the
Oh, right,
person
right.
walking.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm
Yeah.
looking at myself in stereo. It's really odd. If I've run into more people who are confused about where they are in Doe Farm because when they look at the map, they have to physically turn the whole thing around in their head. All the lefts have to be rights. It's just, it shouldn't
No,
be
we'll turn it upside down. It's like,
really confusing.
Well,
it's Australia. Doe
before-
Farm is Australia.
yeah.
We'll turn it up. No. Well, no. I think the idea is to flip it, but that map needs more than just that, and that is kind of like a different discussion.
Yeah, that's when we get to the map part of the
Yeah.
project. Right now, we're talking about the
I
content.
just want to make sure, though, I don't think it's worth making a new map if you don't turn it around.
I think that's unanimous. Yeah.
Well,
Okay, Ken, go ahead.
let me provide a different perspective on that.
From the forester.
From the forester, yes, indeed. You know, I heard complaints about the Doe Farm map, and I went, this is exactly how I would put it. I operate
In north.
with paper or digital north at the top. When I look at my GPS unit on my car, where they're taking me through there, I don't let it turn me around. North is still at the top. There are people, and I'm among them, who operate that way. Other people are, as you described, they look at that and say, where am I going? And figuring, so it's not a uniform process. And I guess I'm arguing, or I'm just indicating that there are lots of people who operate on maps. I would look at that and say, oh, okay, I got to go that way.
I don't have
a problem with it.
I don't have
And I
the
think there are
science on
lots
that,
of people who
but-
don't have a problem, but there are also people who do have a
Probably
problem.
the minority.
I do. So I worked in natural resources. I can use a compass in my sleep, and I am the same way. I keep everything north, right? But
A lot of people
we
don't.
are in the minority
I think we
because of the
probably
work
are.
that we do. And I think if we were to take hands of like how many people have their map adjust to the direction they're pointing in so that they know that if they make a left-hand turn, if they're going in this direction, they have to make a left-hand
Left-hand
turn,
turn.
not head east, okay?
Agreed.
And so we could take a
Yeah,
hands
come on.
right now.
Yeah.
Indeed. So,
Directions,
But I-
north at the top. Who's north
north at the top,
North on top, there's a lot of, how about
There's a lot of
north?
peop- lot of-
How they adjusting? Who does the adjusting?
and my other, just thinking quickly of some other maps that I have seen, UNH maps are oriented, they're in the woods maps are oriented north to the top,
Okay.
not
I'm not-
oriented to the walk.
I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but
No.
I also,
I just don't want to charge blindly into this decision about how to orient that map based on the idea, oh, it's wrong. No, it's not wrong. There are folks who operate with north at the top and are perfectly comfortable with that.
so those
Other
maps.
people will be completely lost, and
We'll
you know,
send
at
out
some-
search and
if
rescue.
we're going to make a decision about how that's going to be, that's fine. But we need to then be consistent across all properties, and I just want folks to recognize that there are
Technical
obdurate
people.
types who
We are going to.
insist on things being north at the top.
Well, you're bringing up a good point. So right now, we're talking about the sign content, not the map part, because we're going to do those two separately. So when we get to the map part, we will definitely have that discussion, but thank you for bringing that up. But I'd like to move forward with a,
Vote,
did you have one more? Yeah, okay, let's have a vote.
or more discussion too.
What's that?
Is there more discussion? Are there concerns? or thoughts from
Well,
people?
right now we're
Well,
talking.
what are we voting on? I
The
guess
main
is the
thing,
question.
yes, that's what I'm about to say. What we're voting on right now is whether to hire Brenda Riddell to work with the kiosk sign group to come up with the design for the content part of the kiosk. And the maps will be handled separately. So, did you have another comment?
I have a question related to that. It's to Todd about a single source contract. And how is that governed by the amount? It might be governed by the amount of the contract and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Do you want to talk about it?
Well, I don't know, how much?
Well, it's $5,800 right now.
Is that within the realm of a single source contract?
Yeah, that doesn't trigger this. That's
Okay,
acceptable.
that just,
Okay, you're saying instead of putting it out for bid?
Professional
right.
services.
You know,
Okay,
At some
yeah.
level, it breaks over into a bid thing.
Okay.
So I wanted to be clear, but I didn't want us to commit. I'm fine with doing that as long as we're allowed to do that.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you for bringing that up. So, as long as we're allowed to do that, I would like to make a motion that we vote to hire Brenda Riddell based on Veronique's recommendation and the recommendation of the kiosk sign working group to work with the kiosk sign working group to come up with the graphics and the content for Doe Farm sign.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay. Let's go around then.
Well, let's have an additional question on, and it's just something that just flashed on me. Now it's just skipped.
Okay. No, this is the time for discussion on the motion. If
Yeah,
you have.
that's what I'm, we got going on the actual motion, I kind of forgot.
Okay.
What the question was.
That was a rather convoluted motion. So.
Yeah.
Neil,
Yes.
That's
Okay.
me.
Any more comment?
Oh, yes, source of funds.
yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Veronique.
So 2 comments. We're not asking Brenda to design to write the content. So I think we should just have a motion to agree to hire Brenda Riddell to design the Doe Farm trailhead sign. That's it. And the $5,800, if this is voted on today, I am planning to request the funds from the Conservation Commission Fund at the end of this month. I've already prepared the fund request.
Okay.
And this cost, just want to mention, it's only design, it's not printing. So to print the sign, depending on the size, it will be between $300 and $900. It will depend on the final size exact of that sign. It will be printed by Portsmouth Signs. So I'm basically planning to request funds for the design route, the $5,800 from the Conservation Commission Fund, and then I'm planning to request additional funds from the Patrons Fund, which is to do improvements at our properties, for building the kiosks and printing the signs. So that's the second part. So I don't know what
Okay.
vote is requested for me to ask these, or if any vote is requested here.
Ask them to endorse it.
Okay, so if you also in maybe another motion would like to endorse, so I calculated that if we asked for up to $6,000 from the Patrons Fund, that would be to buy materials to build a kiosk, because I went from Marty's estimate on building kiosk, and I added another 10% because everything is going up, obviously. So I've just left a margin there. And because we need to build new kiosks for Wagon Hill Farm, Doe Farm, and Packers Fall, as we agreed, full-size kiosks. And they are going to be about $900, give and take, on building materials, and that would be built with volunteer time. And then add to that about $3,000 for printing, say, 3 signs, maybe 4. So that's what I would like to go to the Conservation Commission this month and request. Is that?
But we don't need a vote on that, though, do we? To authorize Veronique to go to the Conservation Commission to ask for funds?
Big recommendation.
Well, what I would recommend is maybe I mean, Veronique can go to the Conservation Commission to ask, but it might be helpful for the Conservation Commission to know that the Land Stewardship Subcommittee looked at it and endorses it.
Mhm.
And Ann may have feedback.
Okay, yes, Ann.
We've always had the amounts approved by this committee so that when Veronique goes, they know that we've looked at this and approved it.
Okay.
So that it's not just Veronique, showing up and saying, I'm gonna, this money, that somebody's vetted it first.
Okay.
She's coming with a request from the committee, not just from herself.
Okay. All right, so,
Question. But this motion is to hire Brenda to design the sign. That's
Right.
all
Yeah.
that's all we're voting for now. We're not
correct.
voting on having the sign printed or
I
building
think,
building a
I think we need to have them as two
Those are-
different
Those are
votes.
separate. These are two
Yeah,
separate.
two different
Let's
things.
just stick with the design now.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it's important for everybody to understand that there's more cost involved.
Yes, yeah.
okay.
Because Doe Farm, you may want two signs. You may want one north and you may want one.
Oh, Marty, please.
No, actually, we want one
Okay.
we actually want one down. We actually want one at the entrance to Doe Farm.
Okay, so getting back to the motion then, so I'm going to scratch my other motion. I'm going to simplify my motion and say I would like to make a motion that we authorize Veronique to hire Brenda Riddell to design the kiosk sign for Doe Farm, period. Okay, so that's one motion. So let's just do a show of hands. All voting members, if you, actually, we need a second.
Well, you can have the second,
Okay.
but we have to give our name and our vote.
Oh, we do?
Yep.
Okay.
And is it up to $5,800?
I would say up to.
Up to.
Up to $5,800, sure. That makes sense. Okay, so,
So before, it's for the Doe Farm, but the Doe Farm, the design work for the Doe Farm essentially becomes the template
that
for
is
everybody else.
Right, and she called it in her proposal, because she has a good name for it. Sorry. She called it a trail informational system design. So that means like
So
I
that's
explained, it
what
can
we're really
be-
asking for, but we're
Right.
using the Doe Farm as the first one to do. That's all.
Correct.
right, as the template. That's a good word for it. So let's start with Linda. Please state your name and say whether you are in favor of this or not.
Linda Kuhn, and I am in favor of the proposal.
Okay? Carolyn?
Carolyn Singer, yes.
Robin?
I don't believe I'm a voting member. Oh, can
You
I?
are,
Okay.
You
Oh,
are, you
see,
are.
that's new for me. So, Robin vote, I'm an aye on this.
Okay. Oh, Marty?
Martin Gorhams, yes.
Neil Slepian, yes.
Ted Howard, yes.
John Carroll, yes.
Okay, the motion.
Ann Wells, yes.
Oh, Ann.
Man.
Okay. Ann, that's a yes? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries.
Very good.
Okay, now, what should the second motion be? Is that,
I wouldn't worry about it. Let's get a design first.
Yeah.
okay, but Ann had said that that the Land Stewardship Subcommittee should authorize Veronique to go to the Conservation Commission to ask for funds
To
for,
request funds from
build,
the Conservation
yes.
Commission. So I think that's what Todd said, that you should, I don't know if you need to make a motion, but endorse me going to the Conservation Commission and requesting up to $5,800 of Conservation Commission funds to pay for the design of the trailhead signs.
We just did
That's
that.
what we did.
You mean to pay for the actual kiosk materials and print the design?
Okay, so that's $6,000 that I'm going to request from the patrons funds.
Okay.
Are you doing that in the upcoming meeting at the end of
Yes.
this month? So you want
Yes,
that?
I've already written the letter and yeah.
Okay, so we need
So I
that
was
as a
just waiting
second
this
vote.
Okay, so what is that $6,000 for again? For the materials?
Materials and printing.
To build the kiosk?
$6,000 is for trailhead kiosks materials and printing or producing 3 signs.
Okay. Okay, so.
And that's for all of the kiosks?
For how?
Or just the one?
That's for 3.
Three.
Because I think that's what I'm planning and hoping we can achieve this year. So that's why I figured I'd ask in one swoop for this fund.
Makes a lot of sense.
Okay. Okay, so does this need to be a vote or?
Yes.
I think the subcommittee should approve this.
Okay.
Endorse this, request this.
All right, so moved.
Okay, so you're moving
That we request $6,000 for the construction and printing of materials for the kiosks.
For 3 kiosks.
For 3 kiosks.
In 2026. Okay, who would like to second that?
For the patrons.
From the- Okay, thank you, Ann. Okay, let's go around. Linda?
Linda Kuhn?
Yes.
Carolyn
Could-
Singer?
could-
Yes.
Could I ask a question?
You may.
How does the $6,000 break down? Is it 3 kiosks at $1,000 each?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
$1,000 for signage?
For 3 signs, that's up to, obviously, I'm trying to plan so we don't have to go and ask for a couple $100 here and there again. So it would be for each of the signs, kiosk would cost up to $1,000 and then the prints would cost up to $1,000 each. That's how I came up with $6,000.
And those are for the Doe Farm, for Wagon Hill
And for
Farm,
Packers Falls.
and-
Yeah.
Wagon Hill too? I thought Wagon Hill was being covered by.
No, that's
mitigation.
just
That's the
their
living
sign is
shoreline.
just a shoreline, living shoreline sign.
Ah.
It's not, yeah.
So this is, gotcha.
Yes.
Yes,
So
we need
Doe
one there.
Farm-
So that at least we can, try to plan that this year.
And
Doe
where's
Farm,
the
Wagon
third?
Hill?
Where's the third one?
Packers Falls.
Packers Falls?
Because there's no
Packers-
kiosk there.
Right.
Oh,
Okay. Okay, so we got.
Continuing on.
Yes, continuing on the vote. So we got up to Carolyn.
Yep.
Aye, Robin.
Robin, vote aye.
Martin.
Martin votes aye.
Okay. As does Neil. Sluppian votes aye.
Ted Howard, aye.
John Carroll, aye.
Ann Welsh, aye.
Okay, the motion carries. Woo. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Any more further discussion? Going once, going twice? No, very good, thank you. This is going to be
Thank
great.
you.
I feel really positive about this project moving forward. It's going to be really wonderful. So now we get to Robin vote on logo design. So Robin's been working very hard and judiciously and creatively to come up with some really cool logo designs for Conservation Commission and Land Stewardship. So the idea here is for us to go through them and take a vote from Mr. Vote on which one or two are our top prospects, and then we'll go to the Conservation Commission and get their input as well. So, Robin, please take it away.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Just for some context and background, now that you got the signage moving, I think it's good that you'll have a logo to be able to throw onto it
Yeah.
as well. I was very lucky enough earlier this year to develop the logo for the Durham Energy Committee that they've been using on all their materials. So very excited that Neil and Veronique came to me and said, why don't you do some work here along these lines? So I was very happy to dedicate some time to developing this. And for some background, I have some experience with municipal design. I worked for the city of Washington, D.C. and their municipality in redesigning their transit system posters, and also worked for Tyson's Corner, Virginia. So I have some interest and some background along these lines. So this is just kind of like the overview. You guys have taken a look at some of the previous logos I've designed. So this will be a good opportunity to kind of look through and see maybe there are one or two or maybe some changes you'd like to see moving forward. maybe one more time, just to make sure it looks good. So the concepts originally started with the first vision, looking for that kind of natural design, maybe the Conservation Commission, looping that into a singular logo that way, and then turning it in Vision 2 into the emblem that you would see traditionally in a town. From there, we kind of broke it down and everything and said we want to move towards something more symbolic that we see in traditional logos, as you see with the Seal of Durham, using sun rays, using some vision of hope within there. So Vision 3 looked at the natural wonders of local, whether that's the connection of land and the habitat. And then finally, after deeper conversation about including other elements and other colors, we moved into Vision 4, which is all together now, and that is the bringing together of conservation and land stewardship in both forms. So the final product and the ones that I want to just kind of throw out to everybody today are these three final concepts that I'm more than happy to go back and do a couple of other changes with. But the final concept, number one, is a very specific style of the heron, more elevated towards the sky. I received great feedback from Neil about maybe we want the sunlight to look similar to the Durham town logo itself, having the rays kind of be attached. So that's found in the first one with certain coloring to match the commission and the committee itself, the subcommittee. The final concept, number two, is a different take, which has a much larger heron and also includes a trailhead with two folks staring off into the distance looking up at the heron. And then finally, final concept number three, which took a little bit of time and kind of careful planning and involvement using all the colors of the Durham Town Seal and everything else. We were able to kind of take a next step and next level to it. So something that originally, as you'll see in my previous slides here, that was very one-dimensional at first suddenly became very three-dimensional by the final product. So you'll see there are trail signs, there's levels to the trees, and there's also some coloring which goes from the land being that brownish tone that you see, mud season, into those bright greens of spring and summer. And then Durham Conservation Commission being in brown, knowing the conservation of the land, and the land stewardship being in green, in coordination with each other, showing that the Conservation Commission focuses on the conservation of the land itself, where the Land Stewardship Committee, with the trailhead sign next to it in green, connects it all together in that way. So those are the three right there. And I called it a brand to stand for. So as you can see in the much larger form, kind of envelops all the different aspects of the logos over time, which is really great. And then, of course, swag, right? Neil and I were talking about, so I put up some mocks of what it would look like on sweatshirts and mugs and everything else. Got some friends in DC to do that for me. And it looks really great on merchandise as well. So being able to promote the commission and the subcommittee as well through that. So just want to say thank you to everybody. And let me go back to those previous logos for discussion here. But yeah, so these are the three you guys can have discussion around, unless you like that final concept number three.
Can I say, can we have a house or something representing the historical aspects of land conservation and stewardship?
Yes, so after spending about, I want to say 6 or 7 hours trying to figure out through hand drawing and trying to figure out some kind of landmark building that could be included within the logo. Unfortunately, just from the way that it looked on final print and on final form, it added too many dimensions to the image itself. Because when it comes to printing and when it comes to the ability for a logo to really stand out, you really can't go beyond 2 dimensions without it becoming too much.
Couldn't you just replace the directional signs with a little house?
It could, but you're talking about scale at the same time as well. So that house would be off the logo itself. So in terms of scale, I think it'd be really difficult, and I've played with it as well. To be honest with you, it's why I didn't present it here, because I thought it was sloppy and it didn't look proper to me in terms of what it could look like. So, but it was tried and it was brought as forward as a concept.
You're replacing trail signs with cemetery stones.
Well, I mean, I think the historical components of land and stewardship, I think it's an important thing to include.
Okay.
Or a cellar hole.
Well,
Yes.
My comment would be that, from my personal perspective, that that would be more appropriate for a logo for the Heritage Commission.
Yes, but I'm on this committee too, representing
Yes.
the historical aspects of the community.
Right, okay, good
So-
point.
I know, well, it gets squirrely because, I mean, agriculture isn't necessarily represented either. And recreation is by the trails, and conservation is, but, you know, it's not necessarily going to be, land stewardship really is where all of these committees come together, right?
Right, and history is usually omitted. I'm gonna argue that, because it's constantly ignored.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
And yep.
So I have an idea.
Yes, sir.
Can we sneak a stone wall in here?
That's a great, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, maybe remove those trees and put it,
Or, you know, somewhere in here you can sneak a stone wall that maybe, I don't know.
And that could be the heritage part of it?
Yeah.
Would that satisfy your
Yeah, I think that's
your
okay.
concern?
wait,
I don't
and
think there's a property that we have that doesn't have a stone wall.
That's right.
Right? Sure. And the last time I checked, people haven't been building stone walls around here for a while. So that might catch, I mean, it's something to think about, I don't know.
sure.
In terms of scale, you can make it small enough so it doesn't overwhelm things, but big enough to be there.
I would think you would have to use like the middle version of it, not the one with the trees and the kiosk. Like, you still have those hikers there, but I think that would add too much of an element, so.
Unless the stone wall went along the pathway where the people are standing, and then it models Old Landing Park with the stone wall work that was done.
Sure.
In the pathway there.
Anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would,
Do you think that's a reasonable thing to put in there, Robin, if you work with it a
Yeah,
little
I
bit?
mean, I can definitely put together another couple of concepts, including that. What I would say and what I would warn the commission is, just from my 10 years of experience of doing this, you add too many elements. So what I would say is, with the stone wall, if you're wanting to include that in the second, so the middle logo, there are probably some other elements, like I know it's hard to see right here, but I can zoom in a little bit for you. There are fish swimming in the water there, which is like a very subtle thing that you would notice on a sign if you were to walk by it or whatever else. So there's little subtleties. I would say another element would have to be removed. So like the folks that are standing and pointing at the heron, you would have to remove them in order to include something like that. I always go by the rule, and what most graphic designers do is they go by the rule of 3 major elements beyond the first level. So right now there's the trail, there's the people, and the heron. So there's 3 levels right there. So one of those, and of course the heron is the staple item within that. So you're talking about the trail being removed, or the people on the trail being removed, in order to match that. But I'm more than willing to put together an additional concept.
I would put the stone wall on the other side.
Right, but that would still, again, it would still go into the 3 major points at that point. But
Which is your preference, Robin, from a designer, from a graphic designer perspective?
So I would say here that if the direction is to include a historical element to this logo, then I would remove the trail itself and have the folks standing on either like a small hill or something that I could blend into there, looking up at the heron, and then adding the stone wall on the other side. I think that could meet both standards that you all are talking about.
I'm reminded by looking at the seal, we have
Right,
sort
we
of
do have a
stone
stone
wall
wall in there.
seal.
Yeah, there is. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
And
that's what I would
houses,
say.
and houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't put everything.
I think we should also
You know,
keep,
that's like,
we should also keep in mind that, you know, that's something we want to print. Like I was hoping to have a logo designed to print for hats and stuff for the BioBlitz. So
Yeah.
that's something we'll have to print or we'll have to embroider. So it can't have like, you know, 1,700 things on there.
right.
So, and
It has to be printable.
The person that I spoke to, who's an embroiderer in Newmarket specifically, who has done work with me in the past, specifically spoke to those 3 levels, right? So you have your base layer that's stitched on first, which would be the circle, the white circle in the background. Then you would have the rings, that's a secondary layer. So the quote that he gave me on the middle logo specifically, which only has the 3 elements without the additional trees and the sign head, was something around the lines of $36 a hat. And that was beyond the wholesale price, that was per hat. So if you're looking at mass production and whatever else, he specifically recommended to me keeping it to those 3 additional items for printing and for embroidery purposes. So I'm more than happy to go back and do that stone wall and propose that back if that's something that
It'd be at least interesting to see, we may very well decide we like this best,
Sure.
but I think it'd be worth the test to see if the stone wall could function.
Sure. Absolutely. More than happy
Is
to
there,
do
is that supposed to be a kiosk? What is that yellow?
Trailhead sign.
It's a trailhead
Trailhead
sign.
sign?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't think that adds anything to it.
I thought it was a
Very
picnic table.
I would just remove it.
Sure, absolutely. That's why we're going through the processing.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that's where I put the stone wall.
Right, but you'd have to remove the trees in order to do that. Unfortunately, because of the multiple elements included.
Okay, so I'd like to ask questions on the heron itself. Heron, elevated heron or heron with the black wingtips? Anybody got any thoughts on that?
I think with the black wingtips, it stands out better amongst all the other background colors. I mean, in figure 1, it looks beautiful to see the heron elevated, but I think you lose it in the
In the
greater
glare of the
picture.
sunshine?
Yeah, it's not clear what it is in the first one, whereas it's clear in the third
Okay, so
and the second.
is that kind of a general consensus? Black wing-tipped? Okay.
And lower. I think it's better lower.
Okay. Okay, so the other thing that I just want to point out is, the meandering stream, which is something John pointed out when we first showed the logo several meetings ago. So we're going to take out the trailhead signs. We're going to go with the black wingtip. You're going to come up with, I would just say, one more option.
I would
with-
say so.
Yeah, one option with a stone wall. And that would be in place of the trail, but you would keep the people.
Yeah, so that's the conversation. So looking at that center logo, it would be the removal of the people, having the trail, and then having the stone wall on the other side.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay,
you
say
have
that
the
one more
trail and then
time.
the stone wall.
Say that one more time, please.
So for the center logo, where
Yeah.
there are people standing on the trail currently,
Yeah.
right? They would be removed, and a stone wall would be added on the other side,
Okay.
in the center logo.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. All right. John.
What about where the leaves are in the border area? Is there any opportunity to do something relative to history, stone wall, that type of thing out there?
That would be depth perspective, so that would take a longer period of time because that's a hand-drawn concept. So you're talking about digitizing something, you're talking about making sure that it runs through the presses so that when it was printed on a sign or whatever else and then given that glossy look that it wouldn't come out pixelated. So that might be difficult with depth. Everything that can be straightforward and towards the front is always good for printing purposes, whether that's stitching or for the purpose of digital use. So
Thank you.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The other question is on the letters for Durham Conservation Commission and Land Stewardship Subcommittee. And the first one, each of those names is green and brown. And the middle one, it's all green. And the one on the right, we have brown and then green.
Yes.
What's your preference, Robin?
So my preference is to do the brown and the green. It separates the Conservation Commission from the Land Stewardship Subcommittee, but also it allows the green leaves to be attached to the Land Stewardship Subcommittee at the same time. So you have that larger group, which is the Conservation Commission up top, and then you have the group that's kind of overseeing some of the land stewardship with the green connection. So I prefer the last one.
The one on the right, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any comments on that?
I agree.
I do too.
Thank you, Ann.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a kind of a general question for you. 'Cause
Sure.
I'm torn. I like the idea of kind of like there's a light green and a dark green, right?
Sure.
On each side of that river. And I like how that tree kind of balances the design a little bit on the right-hand side. But it also those trees also add complexity. Like
Sure.
it's the difference between having something that's simple versus almost just removing that trail, just having the people and really kind of trying to do a simplified version versus something that has more detail in it. And I just kind of wondering just overall what your preference is or recommendation, but I also want to hear from the committee because I'm not sure whether the simplified version or the more aesthetic version would be better for our uses.
And that's the hardest part. We talk a lot about industry right now, right? And we talk about printing houses and folks that are doing this work in terms of, getting these logos and getting them onto materials. The increase in cost in terms of their end, the amount of levels that they have to go through in order to print items. They are always looking for the most simplified because it's the best bang for your buck at the end of the day. In terms of what you're proposing, the idea, the two trees off to the right, correct, where there's that contrast there, right? The one other thing that can be done is you have those green trees in the very far back, right, that are kind of peeking up. Those could be removed and those two trees moved up and widened a little bit in order to still give that perspective that there is something beyond there. That could be done alongside the folks being left, the trail being removed with the folks there. And the stone wall being added, that's another concept. I would just warn that, of course, with removing an element, right, especially if you fall below those three major elements, then you have to find something else in order to put back in there. So in this case, it would allow for, the ability to still meet that threshold, I think, based on what you're proposing. So I think it could be done.
Okay, so what's the best way to go forward on that?
So I would say probably the best way to go forward is give me another, week and a half here to kind of go through, and I can throw together a couple of extra concepts.
Okay, Todd.
I just had one other thought, which was maybe a way to honor Durham's history rather than a stone wall or a building is to tie it to our indigenous past. And through the graphical composition, have some acknowledgement of who managed the land before we did.
That's an interesting concept I hadn't even thought about. Yes, absolutely. That can be, I can absolutely throw that into additional concept for review. Yeah, absolutely. Good point.
Robin, can I make one comment?
I have to.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sure.
So I thought the leaf on either side, is that something that was hand-drawn, or is that something that you grabbed from
So it's interesting. It originally was a graphic that you usually find on Canva. Okay. However, most of the leaves that are on there are so pixelated and so small. So they're usually like 100 by 100 pixels. Okay. So I had to take that and then redraw it in order to...
So one thing I thought might be really neat is to incorporate into that the state tree leaf as opposed to that, because it reminds me a little too much of Japanese knotweed.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
So I'm thinking maybe a paper birch,
paper birch
which
leaf
is going to be a little bit more, I think, attractive in that case.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Ted, you're thinking the same thing?
Yep, I'm with you.
Okay. I like that.
I had been thinking about that leaf, and Yeah,
What is
a little not weedy, it's not pointy enough to be a beach.
Not a beach?
So I was thinking
You don't think?
oak or pine tassel, but a birch,
Yeah.
I think would be.
Yeah, that's a nice.
The state,
have
the state one,
Yeah.
Point birch.
Yeah.
I like the simplicity of the shape
Spatula pepper.
of a birch, although you'll miss kind of the, I think it'd be too difficult to add the teeth in a logo like this, but
Add
maybe
the
if
what?
you imitate the teeth.
You'd be
But
surprised.
It'd be
if you
possible.
imitate the
You
shape.
have to look
You'd be
at it, Robin
surprised.
knows, you have to look at this a couple different ways. Screen printing something like this and embroidery, you're gonna lose a lot of detail. A hot transfer, you're gonna get it exactly as it looks right there. So you gotta understand what you're using it for and what the media is that you're printing.
Quality and quantity.
Right, exactly.
Okay. Robin, thank you. I think you have
Absolutely,
enough
yes.
information to
Good
go back
job.
and do two
Thank
more,
you, appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Robin.
two more concepts?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
I'll probably end up with 4 based on the way I work, but.
Okay. Okay, thank you very
Appreciate
much.
you. Thank you.
I think this is outstanding work.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Robin.
Okay, we're going to move forward because we are kind of running out of time, so I'm going to recommend,
Help you keep awake.
go ahead, what?
while
Go ahead, say what you want to say.
It's almost 10:30.
Nothing. Oh, okay. I'm going to recommend that we hold off on the herbicide application roundtable recap for this meeting.
Okay.
And we skip over to the land stewardship coordinator update. Because we
Okay.
are running a little late.
I'll try to talk fast. So I already talked about the March 15 walk, and I'll actually do an article for the Friday updates with the LiDAR photos of the Long Marsh area. They're very interesting. So I'll have Craig put all that on the website. And I also, Caroline's gone, but I also wanted to thank the historical committee or historical association. Janet Mackey could not attend the walk, but was very helpful, and she had written a 3-page history with different geo points for me to talk about history at Longmarsh. So I want to make a note here that we partnered with the historical association. Last night's program at the Durham Public Library by Diana Carroll, it was about the legacy of the Mills, was very well attended. I see we had about 30 people, and it was great, and it was recorded. So as soon as Craig and his team put together the video, it will be on the website also. I'm starting a French conversation trail walk next week on Thursday at 1 p.m. It will be at Thompson Forest. I didn't come up with the idea. I went to one at the Wells Estuarine Reserve, and it was super well attended, and it was fun. And I thought, well, I can combine speaking French and talking about the trails and the conservation property. And last night, I already got 3 people who told me they were going to come. So, and I partnered with the library because they have a French conversation group there. So they publicized it there. So and he was on the newsletter, I think, last week. So I will do it next Thursday, and I will kind of gauge interest from there. And if there's interest, I'm planning to do it like every 3 weeks to a month so that people can discover properties at the same time. April 24th, we have Astronomy Night at Wagon Hill Farm. I think the registration, it's almost full, right? Yeah, and I have a small group of volunteers lined up to help. The BioBlitz organization is moving forward, so it's in 5 weeks. At this point, I've had good response, so I have experts lined up for every group walk that I wanted to organize, and more than one expert for each walk, for most of the walks, which is great. I have people who have volunteered through Nature Groupie for like general organization help. And I'm going to set up an online meeting and also an in-person walk at the property at the end of this month. Some of them is going to be a one-on-one because a lot of people, I don't think we're going to be able to coordinate that into 2 dates. And registration for participants is going to open next week on the Parks and Rec website. I will send out the press release for next week, and that's kind of a month ahead of the program. So we felt that was a good date. With the guidance of UNH Co-op Extension on that. And the event is already visible on our social media, the Parks and Recs, the town website, Nature Groupie, and I'm going to focus on getting people to create iNaturalist account and register for the project so they're ready when they come to the event. And so that will come in a kind of newsletter to people who sign up. And I obviously encourage everybody to participate. And I know a couple of people have already raised their hands. So thank you. I have a bunch of volunteer opportunities for work days in April and May, and I've synthesized them in this pamphlet, and I'll email it to you also. Same different group project with different schools, scouts, and just in smaller groups, and I will keep updating you on that. On the observation platform at Spruce Hole Bog, so right now I'm working with Audrey Klein and Rich to figure out like what exactly is needed so that we can move forward with the project as far as drawings and requirements. So I hope to be able to update you next month on that. There is a grant opportunity through the New Hampshire Bureau of Trails. It just opened up, and I will be in. They require that you attend a mandatory information session so that you can apply. So I signed up, and I will attend that in Concord on April 29th. So I'll find out a lot more information, and the deadline to apply is the end of May. So I figured that I will leave a month to work on that and decide what we're gonna, what we want to apply for, possibly, and work with Rachel. And
so, Veronique, those, just so you're aware, those grants require that you essentially have everything lined up, including your funding. It needs to be what they call a shovel-ready project. So like the town, it would require you to have a budget for a project that Todd has listed within the budget for next year. So it'd probably unlikely be something this year unless it's a project that you have, but it's also a big chunk of money. And a lot of it goes towards bigger projects that promote accessibility. So if you had a project like if you're creating a more accessible trail all the way down to Oyster River, and then the crossing at Oyster River Forest, and then the crossing of the brook, like that might be something. But there would probably also have to come with it upgrades to the parking lot. Like there's multiple layers to those projects, which I'm sure you'll learn about, but you can also get upwards of, I think it's $100,000 from those grants.
It's 80.
So you can propose big projects and get big money, essentially.
Yeah, and I think getting information is good, so maybe we can put together something for next year. And I've talked with Ted about developing an invasive mapping protocol that we could get funding for through the GBRPP, the Great Bay Resource Protection Program stewardship grants in the fall. So Ted and myself are going to work on that this summer. Yes?
Okay.
And other than that, I'm going to work with Lee Alexander from, I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, but a lot of people weren't here. I'm working with Lee Alexander on having a beehive that he kindly is donating and educating me on beekeeping at the meadows. And we want to do some education materials on pollinator, on good habitat management to go along with the project. So that's a multi-pronged project. And so I'll be asking the Conservation Commission for $500 from the Patrons Fund to fund that. We just need to reimburse Lee for $220 for the bee nucleus itself, so the bees, to put in the hive. And then I thought, having a little money to possibly print and design material for education. And Lee is willing to do an event to educate people later this summer. So that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Veronique? No. Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, John, go
You
ahead.
mentioned the meadows. Is there anything we can do to encourage greater public usage of the meadows? I realize the parking situation is very restricted and so forth. But is there any other access that we can provide for residents to get over there and to use that?
There are no developed trails there right now, so... Oh, Anne wants to say something.
I think what the Land Stewardship Committee decided at the time we were doing the Meadows project was that we were going to wait for the dam to come down.
Yes.
So at that point, the boundaries will have to be set, and we need a survey, but we don't have a survey right now of the Meadows. And there's no point in doing a survey now and then having the dam come down and then having to redo it. So we want more people to be able to access Meadows, but we don't have the trails yet. And we're waiting on a survey map to do the trails, and we're waiting on a survey map for the dam to come down. So that was the thinking.
I think also there were some, accessing the property requires that you walk down a shared driveway. It's a driveway that is on the town's property, but accesses a private home that's kind of behind the house that's along Route 108 there. And I know that Todd kind of managed that situation with the neighbor when it came to the community gardens that are out there, and trying to figure out a compromise on how to have the community gardens have access to that and drive down that driveway, which is technically on town land, and kind of share that driveway for access. And so it does have with it some access complications. There is also a proposal to create a bridge from Milne over to Meadows by a community member. Again, that would need to be really assessed after the dam comes out, and it would be an expensive project very likely, and we're not really sure what the feasibility would be. So I think a lot of this we decided to put on hold until we really understood kind of the water and geology and access.
So it sounds like this is something that we'll just have to put on hold until 2027 even to bring it up again. So, all right, in the interest of moving forward and doing what we need to do, since we are running late, review February meeting minutes and March meeting notes. We didn't get a chance to approve the minutes last time. Does anybody have any comments on the February minutes first? No? Okay, so who would like to make a motion, John, to approve the February minutes?
I make the motion to approve the February minutes.
Okay, and would you like to second that, Mr. Howard?
Yes, I will.
Okay, let's have a vote on the February minutes. Linda, would you like to start?
Approve.
Okay. Robin abstains, you weren't here.
Martin Gorms approves, yes.
Neil Slepian, yes?
This is February?
February.
Yes. Ted Howard, yes.
John Carroll, yes.
Okay.
Ann Welsh, yes.
Ann Welsh, yes. Okay, thank you, Ann. And the March meeting notes, we don't need a vote on because they weren't minutes, but does anybody have any revisions or corrections? Andy, did you see anything that needed to be? Okay. I have a couple of typos, Marty, that I'll go over with you after.
Okay.
Okay, that is that. And committee updates and round table. We have had a lot of discussion today, so anybody want to bring anything else up? No. Okay. Then in that case, may we have a motion for adjournment? Linda. Oh, okay. And move. Linda, would you like to second?
I second.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Neil.